Welcome to episode 1 of the Ross and Dad podcast. Today I am Reinhard Moors, your host, and I'm sitting with a dad who is my dad and also has a lot of knowledge about the topic we'll be discussing in today's episode, which is starting and changing your career. So, Father, tell me about yourself.
Ross, as you know, I'm a coach. I'm a professional coach, and I've been doing that for about 25 years. I work in the industry, mainly corporate industry, and one of the topics I deal with executives often is change. You know, they change their career, they get a promotion. Should they go? Should they not go? You know, what's the impact on that of their families? But also I've worked with people your age or even younger. You know, do they study the right thing, or when they started and they finished, like you now, starting the career and the difficulties thereof, and the transition from being a student to going into, you know, a career, or even younger people might start from, you know, you have finished in school and you directly go into a career, which is also possible. So that is definitely one of the topics I deal a lot with, the change and career as well.
No, I'm glad that we have you here to talk about it.
Sure. Happy to be here as the dad.
As the dad, yes. In our own home. So.
Yes, love it.
Amazing stuff. So let's begin with starting your career.
Okay.
Obviously, you coming from schooling, whatever level of schooling that is, whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary, and then you going into this big transition of now starting a career in the adult world, you know, learning new experiences. It can be scary, but what are some things that you think can help people with that?
So are you asking in general for people from school specifically, or they've studied like you and now starting?
So all levels, so tertiary included.
Okay, so you're starting off the career.
Starting off, you've maybe got a degree, maybe got a diploma.
Yeah, I think the change is often the most scary. Yeah, I mean, not everybody is the same. I mean, we're in South Africa, and you know, people are from different backgrounds. Some people, a lot of South Africans, most South Africans come from a poor background, and they've probably learned to work from a young age, you know. But we also have a middle class and more fortunate people that's more wealthier, that would go to a school and has never really worked. You know, they've maybe went from school to work, or from university, now they start a career. And it's also, I think the word you used is very good, is adult. You know, we think we're adult when you maybe, I don't know, I guess when I was 13, I was like, hey, you know, what does my dad know, you know?
Right,
and I suppose my probably dad also thought, I don't know, you know, I think all kids know that, think and go through that. And maybe you think you're adult if you go out of school, you know, now you study.
Maybe.
But very few young people actually have to fend for themselves. They have to pay their own rent, you know, buy their own food. Yes, it happens, but it's not often. So now you go to, you know, maybe you don't stay with your parents. Maybe you do. Maybe you're lucky there's a transition stage. But if you stay by yourself, and even if they would support you a little, maybe you're in a different town. All of a sudden, you go from a very, like, even school or student environment where you know a lot of people, you have friends. You can be in a different town, maybe even a different country. Maybe you got a nice break and you, I don't know, in England or Germany, or maybe you work in Dubai or America, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
New people, lots of changes, you know, and you become the adult you think you are very quickly, because you think, okay, I am an adult, but then you realize, oops, there is a different level to this. And I think that scariness of the newness sometimes is exciting, it's thrilling, but it could also be quite scary.
And do you think that it is that fear perhaps that accelerates the change or the process of transition?
What do you mean? The change in somebody's mind?
So yes, so the change in, so obviously there's the physical change, perhaps emotional, maybe going to a different place, or just going from schooling or wherever you are to now working.
Yeah.
And you said that there is the fear of that change. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it is that fear that is maybe speeding up the process of adulting?
So maybe we should say that the struggle of going from a more protected environment or a familiar environment to a not so familiar environment, even if you don't leave South Africa, or maybe even we in Cape Town, maybe you work in Cape Town, so you don't even have to leave the city, but it's still a change.
Yeah.
So the difficulty does mature anybody. Now, here is, and I think for parents or caregivers, a challenge. We want to save, you're my son, so obviously there's a sort of a two parts at play.
Yeah.
I want you to be a mature adult, and therefore I need to know that some things you need to, people hate the word suffer, but you need to struggle through. It's like the old story about the butterfly. It needs to go through that, cocoon to be fully formed as an butterfly. And a young person must go through a struggle stage to become a totally mature person. And I suppose it goes on through our lives. We go through stages of change, even if you're older. But let's just talk about when you're your age. So yes, and for me, it's sometimes I see you or Kai, your brother, or Elena, his wife. And you want to make it a bit easier, but for me and Mom, the difficult is, when do I make it easy? When is it too hard for you? And when do you need to struggle a bit because it makes you mature? And if I make it too easy, you will suffer later in life. So I don't want to make it unnecessarily hard or unfair. But if me as a parent give you everything and make your life very easy, then it's also hard. I mean, lot of parents, their daughters or sons found them from a different country and it's tough. And yes, you want to support, and you do, and maybe you give them some financial assistance, and you're there, and you talk, and you care, and you want to do those things. But if you entirely save somebody when you don't need to, they never become mature or an adult. So how you ask the speed of change, is there a correlation between the change and becoming an adult?
Exactly.
It depends.
It depends.
It totally depends. I think it depends on, do I try to save my children? If I do, it takes longer to become an adult.
Sure.
I've seen adults that never became adults because their parents saved them all the time.
Sure.
Fortunately, not a lot, but you do get that.
And
I mean, our viewers would probably mention one or two, maybe in their friend circles, like, that guy,
Yeah, and I'm assuming the opposite is also true. Kids that have become adults very quickly because of maybe the lack of saving.
Yes, because the opposite side, there is nobody to save.
Yeah.
There is nobody to save. So it's a sink or swim. Now, that's not an ideal situation either, because a lot of people do get hurt. They sink, they don't swim.
Sure.
So it's you want to be in the middle, between the two. And yeah, I think sometimes people say, yeah, if you privilege, you have it all, you're gonna have. It's not that. I've seen people who from dire circumstances that are extremely mature, that's very poor, and I've seen very wealthy people that are terribly immature, and vice versa. So I think, and again, your upbringing and the people in your life right through also plays a role. So it's not just the change, the character of the young person that was formed as they grew up has a lot to do with that change as well.
Okay. And as a parent or caregiver yourself, and as someone who has, coached people through this period of time, both, the caregivers and the person going through the process.
Or the parents, yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that there's a fixed amount or a right way of doing this? Or do you think it is just a fluid thing that goes with whatever situation someone is in, and it's just situation specific?
Yeah, probably more the last, situation specific. There's no right way and there's no fluency. If there was a right way, I would be a rich man because I would publish that book very quickly, So I think you are very right in what you're saying, that every situation is different. And again, if it just flows, then you almost want to go, where's the storm? Because life isn't, you're almost like, you don't want life to be hard, but we all know that life isn't smooth, so then you're like, okay, are you ready for when it really hits you? So I know every situation is different.
Sure. And now we've spoken a lot about the change when it comes to starting one's career, but there's also later in life, there's perhaps a time when you are changing your career and maybe going from one role to another, from one company to another, and just going through that whole process. Does that differ? Is it more or less the same? How does that work?
Well, there's the same. So maybe I'll address something which is the same for both.
Okay.
There's a philosophical or a moral concept of, which I like to call mortality, the mortality of life. And everybody knows mortality is death, right? But there's a death of things, So when you're not at school anymore or at university and you start a career, at school or at university is dead because you now started a career.
Yeah.
What happens if somebody dies? Are we happy?
Not at the moment, no.
Normally not, unless it's maybe a villain,
Yeah.
But in normal circumstances, we mourn. There's a mourn. There's almost a denial sometimes. There is
the stages of grief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in a similar way, when change happens and the old situations is no more, you go through that transition phases in a fairly similar way. So that's true if you're at school and you started to work, or like you're at university, now you start work. Or somebody who's 40 and get a promotion to go to Dubai, and she has 2 children, and maybe the husband is an engineer, she works for a great corporate. If she says no, maybe again, because they offered the promotion before, does she lose the opportunity for further growth in her career, and what's the impact on her family? Maybe that has a positive impact, but maybe that has a negative impact. And it's that anticipation of what's going to happen if I change. It's like almost before somebody dies, there's that, aspect. But you know, and that's something in itself, and we can talk about that later, about that
Sure.
change. But let's say she did take the position. You know, she did take the position, she thought it through. Husband, that's the engineer, can work remotely, you know, from Dubai and fly in. The children is in the international school. They seem happy. They might not seem, but there's a lot of now, it's her new colleagues. Yes, maybe she met them remotely before, but new situation, new friends. They had their friends, bride with him, and you know, weekends played their paddles and whatever they did, you know. New friends to me. It's, yes, is the old friends dead? No, but the situation died. The kids' friendships, are they still friends? Yes, of course, they chat, but it's not entirely the same.
Sure.
So they mourn something that's gone. And that's also something to never forget. If change happens, like in careers and stuff, that's a big thing as well. And to help people through that.
Okay, so would you say that it is frequent that people mourn these things incorrectly, or maybe they don't mourn it and they still in a state of confusion or despair?
Well, I think you have to remember, if we talk about mourn, not everything is trauma.
Sure.
Yeah. So for some people it's really traumatic. And I mean, it becomes clinically, people are not well. And they would go and see a therapist. It
Sure.
would be that traumatic. The mourning is sincere. There's now depression, there's anxiety. You know, it manifests into something that's clinical. But everybody goes through a aspect of mourning the old situation, the old life, the varsity life, the nice paddle relationship before they went to Dubai or whatever it is, you know. And so there is a aspect, there is a change and a crisis or whatever. It doesn't have to be clinical, but it still needs to be dealt with. And I think for me as a coach, I work a lot with those things, you know. You don't have to be depressed to go through a mourning process, and it's still difficult. And if you can talk to people, you can work through it. And sometimes it's your friend, and sometimes it's a coach, and you know, sometimes if it's, as we said, much more clinical, it's a therapist. But yeah, you can't escape it. Yeah, it's sometimes very traumatic and sometimes much easier.
Okay. And how often would you say that people perhaps are unaware of this mourning that they're going through, or this grief, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're very aware of the change.
Okay.
So let's take you as a young person, you know. So if a young person starts a career, they get their own flat, let's just make it a little bit more difficult. They're not in Cape Town. They, you know, they studied, I don't know, veterinary science, you know. And now, yes, they studied there in Pretoria initially anyway, but now they're back home. But they thought, oh, we're going to get a post here in Cape Town, but the best post they can get is out there in Beaufort West. It's 4 hours from here, and but it's a good post, you know. They're aware of the change. They're going to get a house or a flat in Beaufort West, but it's 4 hours from Cape Town, new friends, whatever. So are they aware of the change? Of course. They're not always aware of how it affects them.
Okay.
They could be, I miss, but they know that, but the deeper realization of it's gone and I need to... So if you live as if that still exists, then you live a life that's not real, if you understand what I'm saying. It'll be like, if I live a life, my father has passed away many years ago, but let's pretend that my father passed away 2 years ago. But it'd be weird if I talk to you if my father is still alive all the time, you know. you would
I
be quite
suppose.
concerned.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, maybe you should see
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
And so I don't make my dad food because, he'll be dead. Maybe the first month or whatever, I don't know, you go through some mourning process and it's more, traumatic. But it'd be quite weird. So if you're now in Beaufort West, back to our example, if you in your mind live like you live in Cape Town and you don't integrate yourself in Beaufort West, you make the change difficult. So we're not saying cut your friendships in Cape Town, but we're saying you need to start making new friendships in Beaufort West too. Yes,
Okay.
like every third weekend you're back in Cape Town, you're with your buddies in Cape Town. But unless you start a new life in Beaufort West as well, it's going to hurt you. The change is going to be difficult.
Okay, I suppose that makes quite a bit of sense. I know you said that mourning is one of the similarities between the starting and the changing of career. What are some of the differences then?
Well, when you change a career, at least career is not new to you. You already had a job, you already paid your own insurance bill, you already, there's less newness.
Okay.
When you're young, often there's a lot of newness. Most people who change a career wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock, do their thing. That work at 8 or 8:30 or 9. They work till 5 or 6. They work overtime, They can't bunk or skip class, If you skip class at work, you're in trouble,
Yeah.
But if you're young, maybe you oversleep a little bit. No professor has, when I was young, they still had roll call, and there was a list, and the professor would say, Moors, where's Moors? And you were in trouble.
We still take attendance nowadays.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
Might not necessarily be roll call depending on where you go, but
there
is still some other attendance
but
system.
I know those like huge university. There's like 300 in the psychology class. It's maybe not.
Yeah.
But nobody's going to bother. Already from school to university is less so, because at school they notice, right, very quickly, where's Ross, hopefully they notice, maybe some schools, but okay,
I might just disappear, who knows?
Yeah, but in university less so. But in work, if you like, sorry, I slept in, they might like, okay, maybe you were sick or whatever, you can say you're sick, but you do that 3 days in a row, come out late, or it's different.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest change, is your lifestyle change dramatically when you're from school or from varsity or a tertiary institute to a work, where a career change when you're working, at least most people have fended for themselves before that change happened.
Of course.
So the responsibility of becoming an adult is probably, or more of an adult, is much bigger in the beginning.
Yeah, I guess that makes quite a lot of sense, going from the space where the consequences are minimal, or maybe they're out of sight, to where the consequences of your actions are very real and might affect your daily life.
Yeah.
And adjusting to that, and then maybe when you're older, you're already used to that, so it's not really something to adjust to. So you're already aware of how this working system works and how life in that system works. This video was brought to you by Outerboxthinking.
Outerboxthinking is a company that works with people who go through change and transition, but also does a lot of other things. We are coaching specialists, we train coaching, and we coach executives and people in careers. We also work with leadership and leadership development, and also innovation and innovation leadership. That's Outerbox Thinking. Google us, you'll find us, social media, and on our website, www.outerboxthinking.com.
So, Dad, earlier we spoke about the hypothetical story about the woman going to Dubai with the engineering husband, 2 kids in the international school. But you said that there was another version of how that story might go. Would you mind taking us through that then?
Yeah, well, I mean, it could go wrong, right? You know, so, and I think maybe I should go a little bit before it goes wrong. I
Sure.
think that another aspect of change is you take a risk, right? You take a bet on the future.
Yeah, I mean, you're gambling.
You are gambling in a certain say. Well, maybe sometimes the gamble isn't that big, but it could be, you know.
Exactly.
Could be, you know. And so before you even take the decision, you anticipate, you know, am I doing the right thing? You know, I'm going to Dubai with my kids. You don't know 100%.
Sure.
It's not 100%. It's not like you put all your money on red and it's going to be on red, you know. It could be black and then you lose all your money, you know.
It could land on the zero.
It could land on the zero and you didn't play zero, you know. So that's roulette, right, Ross?
Yeah, roulette.
But okay, back to the story. You know, there's a risk. Or you go to Beaufort West, you know, and am I doing the right thing? So before the action or before the choice is even made or the change is about to happen, it's the anticipation. Am I risking it all? So that's a big thing. The other thing is now the change has happened. And let's say it did go wrong.
Okay.
You know, it did go wrong. Your children hate you because they get bullied at school there somewhere, you know, or your colleagues bully you, you know, that rosy promotion, but be you got promoted instead of somebody else that's now in that office in the foreign country, you know. How did that go? And sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well at all, you know. Or you in Beaufort West, our friend, you know, that took a job as the vet that goes out there and, you know, his car gets broken into, laptop stolen, you know, the second day the dog dies, that is
On the operating table.
yes,
Yeah.
something like that, and it's the most best farmer in the district that's now mad with him, the new vet, or, you know, it could go not well. It could go not well and can even go horribly wrong. And how do you deal with that? Let's take the lady in Dubai. Your kids now hate you all of a sudden. Now there's guilt. There's not just anxiety. There's guilt. There's regret. So change is a big thing. I mean, you know, like we spoke about retirement. Did you retire too early? Is your money going to make it, you know? Or, yes, you planned everything else out, but now one of your children gets horribly sick, then all the money you planned out for your retirement is now not enough. You know, and life happens. And so change is, we said, does it flow? It never flows. It never flows. It's never just easy. It is, it's hard at best and really tough at worst. And I think therefore it's very important to talk. You know, talk to your friends, talk to your family. There's no shame in we all make decisions through our life. We all make change. If you're a young person and, you know, yes, we spoke in the beginning of, I want you to succeed and the cocoon thing, and it's true, but sometimes it's tough, and you need to be able to say, Dad, Mom, you know, whoever, it's tough, you know, and yes, or your friends or your family, I think, you know, communication is vital, you know. that, and sometimes if you're really in a fix and you're getting really depressed, and you start getting dependent on other things than good food, maybe you should see a therapist or somebody that's in a clinical field that helps you. Or if you just maybe not clinically ill, see a good coach, somebody who deals with crisis and change like me. It's just, and there's other great coaches out there. But I think change is tough, and the more we talk, it gets a bit easier. I think that's probably my message for moving into a career or changing a career.
I'm inclined to agree with that, not only as your son, but I think it's just valuable input that I can learn and apply for myself in my own situations. Maybe it's something I can pass on to my friends and whatnot, something that might help them.
Or they watch your video channel.
Or they're watching this podcast right now.
Yeah,
that can
you're
help
already
them.
helping, Ross.
Indeed. So thank you very much. That will be it for episode 1. So thank you, Dad.
Thanks for allowing me on the show.
Of course. And we'll see you in the next episode.